And welcome to the No Summary Required podcast, a podcast where we talk about nothing. And welcome your duo of hosts, a dynamic duo, if I do say so myself. Romina, beaming from the Star Trek Enterprise, and of course, the Dark Lord in his dark lair, Roberto Blake. Welcome to the No Summary Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please like, subscribe, do all of the things, or the robots will take our jobs.
Or Bruh. I thought that was a given.
Bruh. Inevitable. Like Thanos. Snapping Inevitable. These jobs up. Snapping these jobs up. Inevitable. It's like, you don't have a job. You don't have a job. You don't have a job. Like,
Roberto, what industry do you think is going to go out first?
Oh God.
Who's going to lose their job? Who should be preparing?
People are already losing the jobs to the physical automation. We didn't Amazon just say it's cutting another 1,800 jobs?
And, really?
Yeah, Amazon's cutting another 1,800. I think Shopify is cutting 10,000. Sorry, not 1,800, 18,000 from Amazon. Another 10,000, I think, from Shopify. Salesforce cut another, I think, 5,000 plus. It's just a bloodbath all around, like, with all these cuts and everything. Death by 1,000 cuts, death by 10,000 cuts, death by 100,000 cuts. Like, that's what's happening in the market right now. The market is, I think that, but I think it's not going to just stop at like the physical labor market. I think it's going to be a lot of things in terms of admin work and clerical work. I think a lot of white collar jobs are on the line now, and then they're going to be like, oh, the automation, because you're going to see, I think that call centers as an entire industry and staple eventually can be replaced by AI within our lifetime in 5 to 10 years. 5 to 10 years, I see not all call centers, but a lot of call centers being shut down in the next 10 years for sure. Maybe as many as, I mean, you could say, oh, he's just pulling this number out of his butt, but it's like, I think that 60% of call centers could be gone in 10 years. In 10 years for sure.
60%? Where are you getting these numbers from,
So
Bruno?
here's where the thing is, because I think that it'll be incremental over time, because think about it like this, Romina. If there's even just a, let's say there's even just a 15% reduction in call center workforces this year, right? And then there's another 15% next year, and then another 10, and then another 10, and then even another 5 after that. It's the compounding effect. It's the compounding effect. Because even at 15% or so, at 15%, something only needs to go 15% year over year. Like what? 5 times, 6 times before it doubled the amount. That's how compounding works. Compound losses work that same way. So 15% decline of anything or 15% cuts to anything year over year compounds over a long enough timeline to where it's been cut in half. Compound gains, compound losses.
So you're thinking about this in like a broader sense of not one specific industry to go first, but rather it being spread out amongst various industries.
Around various industries, because you have to remember that these technologies are problem solvers. They're not necessarily inherently targeted. They're not inherently bad. They're not inherently evil. They're not inherently wrong-headed. They're not inherently trying to threaten anybody. It's just the technology is what it is. It does what it does, and what it does is it solves a problem. And you know what people's jobs do? People's jobs solve a problem. You're there and you're paid in proportion. Remember what I've always said, Romina, about making money is that everyone is paid in proportion to the level of difficulty of the problems that they solve and the efficiency and efficacy with which they solve those problems. Well, when that can be scaled, and then because what the machines do is they scale, right? So when you get a machine to do something, once it starts to do it at a high level of accuracy, it doesn't have to be that high before it competes with a human, because humans make mistakes. Humans make mistakes because the thing is, the AI, once it's trained and trained properly, it doesn't make the same mistakes over and over and over again after a certain point. Humans still do. And even a human being that's been trained to perfection will still make mistakes because they'll be emotional or they'll be sick. An AI, a robot, a machine has no such vulnerability of, I made a mistake because I'm emotional. I made a mistake because my kid's sick. I made a mistake because I didn't sleep enough. Machines don't make that. So machines have less inherent liability over the longest period of time. So over the longest period of time, they make less mistakes. In an 8-hour run, a machine will make less mistakes in 8 hours than a human will. A machine will make less mistakes in 12 hours than a human will. A machine will make less mistakes in 24 hours than a human will. A machine will make less mistakes over a year than a human will. Because we have all these frailties and things, and machines are consistent. So now they're consistent, they're scalable, and they reduce risk and liability. That's inherently favorable and desirable by a business. Any business, doesn't matter what it is.
I think too, there's also the worth mentioning is you say mistakes, but also there are intentional mistakes,
corruptions,
corruption,
impropriety, maliciousness and impropriety. Machines aren't malicious. They're benign and neutral. They can be
and
used in a malicious way only by a human.
right. And the thing is too that sometimes it's not even malicious. Sometimes people break the rules or do something that they're not supposed to do because they're empathetic, because they have feelings and they hear somebody's sob story and suddenly the rules are bent. And machines don't do that.
I agree. But here, because you know what, I tell people who are worried about being replaced by machines, Romina, the thing that machines really, really can't do are the only thing. Like, all right, so what the value of a human is, for all of our other failings and all our other problems, as much as I give us a hard time as a species, is a machine will not replace the relationship you have with another human being, right? There's not a machine that I can outsource our friendship to. You know, there's a machine can be more reliable than some of the artists that I've hired, honestly, in one capacity. That if I go with an AI machine, it might be able to produce something or a facsimile of an idea that I have instantaneously.
Yeah.
But it can't do the revisions. And it can't duplicate the thing that it did and build on top of that to my precise specification, and not very easily. It's getting close, but it's not very easily. Now, that being said, with that in mind, and the thing is, I've tried to see if I can get it to do that, by the way, with things like Midjourney and using the machine itself generated as the reference and trying to get to correct or refine or build on top of its reference. It's not there yet. Maybe in several generations is. Here's the thing, though. If I work with an actual human artist, they can make revisions to my specifications exactly the way I want them. And yes, it will take longer, but that is the point. And so the thing is, just like the trades, you realize why we can't have robots and why do all labor, why we won't have a true 100% post-labor economy until we have maybe sentient autonomous androids like an iRobot. Until then, there will be laborers. And the reason there will be laborers is because automation is not precise enough for detail work.
Yeah.
That's why AI art is not a threat in the capacity that I think that it's a threat to the lower level as much as people don't want to accept that. If AI artwork is a threat to you, then you probably do not create enough specialization, specificity, or detailed work.
Yeah.
In terms of, and by the way, that's not a criticism of you as an artist. That's a criticism of your business model as an artist because of who your clients are.
Yeah.
I would submit that artists that are afraid have not yet built the confidence or done the work to reach a different caliber of client. Because as much as they complain about me using AI artwork, what they should be doing instead of complaining is they should be cultivating how they're going to be one of the few artists that I'm willing to pay.
Yeah.
And the thing is, that's where I think the problem with the resistance to this in different fields. Do you know why coders are not upset about this? Because they know that the specificity, the refinement, and the detail work that is required to truly build things that are worth paying for is not going to displace them because it cannot compete. But what artists have done is they've gotten in their feelings and said all of art and all my creativity and all my thing is worth something and I should be valued. But that's a pushback emotionally from a validation, self-esteem, starving artist syndrome type of thing.
Yeah.
An artist who's crushing it, making six figures,
is not sweating.
No, not at all. The only ones that are arguably content creators who feel their style is being stolen, because the thing is, as content creators, they did profit on their style as content creators.
Right.
But they still shouldn't worry, because their value, they're still not thinking about the creator economy the correct way, in my opinion. Because the thing is, you can't biting off Mr. Beast style wouldn't accomplish anything. It wouldn't do anything. It's like you have a relationship with like some writer copying J.K. Rowling and biting off Harry Potter style and aesthetic and then reappropriating it and trying to do it something else. They won't win, because there's a relationship that people have with those characters. There's a relationship people have with the fandom itself, the communities that they've built. There's a relationship they have with the community of people that also enjoy the thing. Like, so you cannot duplicate that. That's my entire point. Relationships are what make the relationship between the creator and the audience, the creator and the client, is intrinsically what I think is the most valuable thing, thing there is. And it's the thing that you're really, truly paid for. You're paid for your relationships. You're paid for your reputation. Yes, you are to some extent paid for your reach, but you can't get that reach without actually producing results in something inherently valuable. And that is what the revenue driver really is. But the thing is, when you don't have the clarity of understanding that your value is you, and you don't believe that. So I believe this is all insecurity at the end of the day. And I get it. Being an artist, you build up these insecurities in your head. You feel ostracized. You feel othered in all these different ways. But that's a mentality. And unfortunately, it's also a real truth that in the artistic community, there's a lot of mental illness and insecurity and a lot of things that go along with that. Some people, it's also a byproduct of their experiences being neurodivergent. And I understand that. I empathize with it completely. I lived it already. But I also lived it, and I'm almost 40 years old. I understand that the light at the end of the tunnel is to have the sobering reality of the fact that nobody owes you anything, and it's your business model. And the thing is, it's your relationships. And if you have faith, the fact that you're someone who's capable of great, tremendous relationships, you know that people aren't going to, because again, you're worried about competing with AI art. Why aren't you worried about another human being replacing you? Why aren't you worried about another human being replacing you? You're worried about AI stealing your artwork. Why aren't you worried about another human being? It's YouTube, it's social media. There's like thieves that have been stealing out there. Art theft is not new. AI doesn't make art theft new. Art that's been happening forever. People out here stealing intellectual property, Spider-Man, manga, anime, Goku, all this stuff all the time.
Literally, we learn how to steal as soon as we start learning how to create.
Facts. And the thing is, you can go on the moral high horse route of it, or you could be much more like pragmatic and say, okay, this is reality.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to stop momentum. And the thing is, there is never, Romina, can you name a technology that we've managed to like abandon, obfuscate, shuffle off this moral? Like, has there ever been a technology that you think people have successfully managed to rebel against? What technological advancement have people ever successfully rebelled against?
Rebelled?
Like successfully to where they stopped the technology.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I don't think that there really is one, because even the ones that I think about, they've come back a decade later.
Can you think of an example?
Like one that has officially been, or
I can think of an example. Okay,
about?
Watch this. As much as people complain about microtransactions and they trash like EA for microtransactions in gaming, the market, they still doing it because it's still making money, because there's still more people. There's still so many people that buy. Well, see, there wasn't a moral outrage against Betamax. Betamax was just defeated by marketing, not by rebellion. You see, that's what I mean. It's like, because marketing wins and a better product can lose. But I'm saying a technology doesn't lose. A technology loses to marketing, but what it doesn't lose to is the rebellion of people who are against the technology. If anything, they accelerate its adoption. Because now, oh, you said that thing's dangerous? Ooh, well, I like danger. It's like, what's that about? Oh, that's exciting. I might have to find out. Oh, that's dangerous? Oh, it's attractive now. Like, all you do when you rebel against something is make it attractive. Like, that's,
and regardless, in time, it will come back.
A lot. Like, you know what? People think that crypto and NFTs are gone because of scam mania. And yeah, there have been a ton of scams. We've talked about this. The corporations will not abandon this technology. Y'all I'm talking to people in real estate. I was talking when I bought my my last car. I bought a Toyota RAV4 because my mom's car got totaled. I bought a RAV4. I was talking to them, and the thing is, we were talking about the key fobs, and we started talking about blockchain technology, and we started talking about the fact that the key fobs are blockchain technology.
Oh
Like,
my
people do not
god.
understand
Yeah.
that the key fobs are blockchain. The key fobs are tokenized. I was talking
Yeah.
to a real estate agent on a Twitter Spaces the other day, and
Mhm.
they were talking about blockchain in real estate already happening. That's already happening. They were
Oh
talking about
yeah.
all these industries, and here's
Mhm.
the thing: I keep telling people, it's like, what happened was this just didn't get to 15 years of being nerd exclusive, because if it did, you wouldn't have all these scams and all this trash and everything like that. The problem was people saw nerds and people who were anti-establishment sitting in their corner,
Mm.
and they started popping off and talking about how rich they were getting. And then
Mhm.
a bunch of normies and brokies got in on it that didn't know what they were doing, because, like,
Mm.
can you imagine how bad
Yeah.
the internet would have been if it
Mhm.
didn't get to be siloed off for like 20 years and be the exclusive domain of the internet's been around since like 1985,
Right.
but it was the exclusive domain of nerds,
Right.
like right up
It
until about the
was
year
extremely
2000,
exclusive.
like until like the year 2000, the year 2000, like,
Yeah.
and so because the nerds got to build the internet, the
Mhm.
infrastructure and the culture for a very, very long time in isolation,
Yeah.
it got to thrive, scale, and be stable.
Yeah.
If you had let every freaking normie and every freaking Norman Rockwell soccer mom onto the damn internet back then,
Mm.
it would not be what it is today.
Yeah.
It would not. They would ruin it. They would ruin it. Normies ruin everything. And yeah, for real.
No, you're not
Because
wrong. Yeah.
if you look at any technological advancement,
Mm.
the longer it's in isolation before it mainstreams, the better it is. But once the mainstream gets a hold of it, once Hollywood gets a hold of it, it's over.
Right.
The longer it gets to stay a niche culture, the better. It's not that it should never be adopted by the masses. It's that has to be onboarded very, very slowly and very, very carefully. And what happened was crypto and
Yeah.
blockchain and NFTs went to mania, and the mania created the opportunity for the scammers.
It's the chaos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Chaos is a ladder.
Oof. Um I want to go back
Mhm.
to talking about the artists
Yeah.
and being able to adapt
Yeah.
and kind of using AI to be able to help them to create more efficiently.
It's so practical for them to embrace it as a
Mhm.
supplemental tool for ideation
Right.
and for client work. You know what? Here's a great example. If
Mm.
you're a graphic designer, don't worry about this putting you out of business. If you're a graphic designer, and you can literally use this to solve the bane of every graphic designer's problem. The client being one of those I'll know it when I see it types, and wanting to. I used to work for a guy that if you made a logo, he
Mm.
wanted to see 20 concepts,
Jesus.
20 concepts to make up his mind and to
Yeah.
pick one. 20
Yeah.
concepts. You realize
Hmm.
that all the frustration, all the anxiety,
Mm.
all the wasted billable hours can now then be eliminated by doing these renders
Yeah.
for the concepts. Now you don't have a blank slate anymore. You have all the concepts. Now you can manually execute on or mock up these concepts
Mm.
and then show it to your client, and then you didn't have to rack your brains, because just the ideation process of what is this thing even going to look like is so annoying when you have to have someone who wants to see that many concepts. And there are
Mm.
clients like that. You can eliminate that instantaneously. Character design is the same thing. If you're doing character design for a VTuber and you need to make a puppet model for them and stuff like that, you can go ahead and you can literally render and mock up character designs and let them make a decision. And then you're working with something that they've
Mm.
decided on, and that your client is no longer wasting your time. So the thing is, this can help artists so that their clients stop wasting their damn time, because that's the most painful thing as a creative person, is when your client wastes your time because they don't even know what they want you to execute on.
Right. Yeah, I mean, a lot of people, there's also a lot of people who I think I think part of it is the mania of
Yeah,
AI, and
I
there's a
agree.
lot of people who are thinking about, I think it's not just about change. It's also about having this kind of mentality that I don't know if it's like thinking that they're entitled. I don't know if that's what it is, but
I think
they're
there's a little bit of that.
where they're just scared, right? But I don't
I
know if
think it's
like
that.
scared isn't really the right word, because I feel like
I
they're
think they feel threatened. I think they feel genuinely and
threatened
legitimately
is the
threatened.
word.
And I'm not
Yeah.
trying to undermine that feeling or invalidate that feeling, but I'm trying to remind people it's a feeling, which
Yeah.
means a feeling doesn't have to be a fact, and it usually isn't. A feeling doesn't have to be a fact, and it usually isn't. And so when you feel threatened and you feel afraid, the antidote to fear is reason. And
Yeah.
reason is based in facts. And it will
Right.
deliver you from darkness. Not to sound preachy, but it's like it will deliver, like dragging something into the light of day with truth and logic and facts and reason is what protects you from the darkness and the fear of every shadow on the wall. Is when you drag it into the light and you reveal it for what it was. It's your imagination working against you.
There's Zayden in the chat said something that I want to point out because I think it's good. It's a good example, is that you can be the guy who's still using a Nokia in 2022, and that's cool, but you'll only be limiting yourself.
That's fair.
And if you have things you don't like, you need to build a version that you do like, because it's coming either way.
I
Haha.
think that artists should be working with people
Mhm.
like in the development community for their concerns and not
Yeah.
trying to stop AI. If their whole issue is an ethics thing and a copyright thing, okay. Do you know what happened when do you know how YouTube got started? And most artists support YouTube and they want to be on YouTube and they want to be YouTubers. Wait, at the beginning of YouTube, Romina, was YouTube ethical at the beginning?
No, I would say that it probably wasn't.
No, it wasn't. Was do you realize that every great innovation we have in multimedia
Mm.
started unethically? Primary example, Napster. Was Napster ethical?
Yeah, of course it was.
No, it wasn't.
Roberto.
No, it wasn't. And we was on that, and we was on that ish, and we know it wasn't. Statute of limitations is up. We good. Like, but here's the thing. Because of that, look at everything we got. We got digital music. We got the iPod. We got Apple Music. We got iTunes. We got all these great innovations in terms of our ability to consume and stream. We got Spotify. None of this would have happened. None of this would have happened without the unethical approach of Napster. But that unethical approach was solving a problem for consumers of, why can't I have all this music that I love, and why can't I get access to this, and why can't I find this, and why can't I consolidate this, and why can't it's like it literally solved a problem for the consumer.
Yeah.
It solved a problem for the consumer. And that's where everything starts. And the consumer wasn't concerned about how ethical that was for the music corporations or even for the musicians, were they? But that got resolved over a period of time. That got addressed. But do you think all the consumers, all the people are like, they're like, well, if you made a way for me to do the thing I want to do, but made it ethical, then I'd use it. And then, here comes Steve Jobs.
Yeah.
So that's what it had to be, is like, a solution has to be created. But the thing is, a solution, and the first solution is, here's something that users want to solve. So now we solve that problem for users. It may or may not be ethical. It may or may not be good. You realize that almost all of the technologies we enjoy today, the unethical nature of the technologies that we enjoy the most today, didn't just hurt people's livelihoods, hurt people's feelings, or make them feel invalidated. It literally killed people. The cell phone killed people. It killed its creator. The cell phone killed its creator. Do you think that was there's probably some level of that being very, very wrong? Do we want to undo that technology? The answer is no. Like, people died for our medical advancements, and it's horrific and evil. Do we want to stop taking the medicine? The answer is no. So the thing is, you have to make things good and safe and ethical and right, but people have to accept that there's collateral damage along the way to that. There's a process that we go through, and it's not that people don't want everyone to prosper. It's that there's a process that is uncomfortable for transformation in the human race. is always discomfort in transformation for the human race. There's nothing we get, and people want to have the prosperity without the discomfort, and that's just not how it is.
Yeah, the first solution is never perfect.
No.
And not even the last solution.
No. It's like we got to go through iteration. Like, you realize how painful it was to get to the level of internet we have today. Y'all remember dial-up?
Or remember having to put in a CD?
Oh my, or floppy disk, or remember zip disk? You remember a B drive with a zip disk? Like,
KDX in the chat asked, which AI art generator do you think will come out on top?
I don't think it's been made. I don't think it's been made yet.
My opinion, out of the AI art generators that we have right now, I think Midjourney is on top. And the reason for that is because so I will say Dolly was superior. But Midjourney managed to reach more people quicker.
Agreed.
They were more accessible. Dolly was very closed off for invites, and it just made it really difficult to get into their program.
I think that's why ChatGPT is winning.
Right. And so because Midjourney was more open, even though Midjourney was not as good as Dolly, Midjourney is able to now improve. And now the Midjourney that most people know now is not the Midjourney that it was a year ago. And but they're able to improve now because of the amount of people that they have feeding the AI. The AI has been able to learn very quickly because it has so many users. So that's my opinion. And that's purely coming from like a marketing standpoint.
Yes, I told you the marketing will win.
Right. And so even if Dolly was superior, if there's more people using Midjourney, then that's the one that's going to be on top, just because the AI is going to learn quicker. I mean, it's like Apple when they came in and they gave they had the iPod. I mean, there were already MP3 players and they were pretty good. But Apple just came in and the way that they marketed it, they're just like, hey, you know what? You could put 1,000 songs in your pocket.
Exactly.
Right? And just that alone, it just made it more accessible.
Agreed. And that's Apple's, that's what Apple's real winning is. It's their marketing, their messaging, and the fact that they make things feel accessible and they don't make people feel stupid. Like,
well, that was their whole thing when they were making PCs. I mean, that's the reason why
they made personal computers.
Right. Is to have them be accessible and have them be friendly. Right. I mean, that's the reason why
take it beyond the nerds that had it for 30 years.
Right. And that's the reason why the first thing that Apple Computer said was hello. Right. It's like, it's such a friendly thing because it's welcoming. It's the human aspect of it. Right. So I think that whatever AI is able to humanize the process, I think that's the one that's going to end up on top. It's the one that's accessible to people and relatable.
I agree with that 1,000%. And here's what I believe. Like, because again, we're so early to this, the concerns that people have, because I understand that not everyone's afraid of technology. I get that. And yes, so simply, Majida, I understand what you're saying there. In the chat, with not all who have concerns about AI are afraid of technology, but I understand why that point's addressed. It is because some people are, because it's not that they're just technologically adverse, but yes, that too, because again, I'm 38. I've been in this art community because I was a traditional artist first. I'm 38. I was around before this was mainstream. I bought one of the first Wacom tablets ever made. I bought one of the first drawing tablets ever made. I bought one of the first Gateway computers, was one of the first people to make a computer that you could draw on. And I overpaid for that because it cost more than a Mac back then. And I got it. Now, the hinge on it was stupid. It was for one of the first tablet PCs. I bought one of the first tablet PCs. And with my own money that I made as a freelancer. And it broke within, I think, a year and a half, 2 years, because the hinge was really flimsy on that, despite overpaying for it. And it was more than a Mac. So, like, the thing about it, and I agree with you with what you're saying about its current state, but its current state is early. Its current state is early. And what I remember is this. I remember when photographers were against digital cameras entirely wholesale, and we're talking about how great film is and all this stuff. But here's the thing. Film actually made photography inaccessible to a lot of people. Digital solved so many problems, and that's why there are more people who love photography now, because digital solved so many problems and made it accessible. The same thing with when it became video and online video. Filmmakers, Scorsese, all these people, they hated YouTube. They hated online video. They hated content creators. They were hating so hard, and they were so against it. Viacom tried to shut down YouTube because you know what YouTube did? YouTube didn't decide to do this on their own, but YouTube became the largest website of pirated content on the entire internet. And YouTube, for years, facilitated mass piracy for years in its infancy from 2005 upwards, and they got sued for $1.6 billion by Viacom. And YouTube spent, and this happened in 2017. YouTube was acquired by Google in November of 2007. YouTube was built 2005, February 2005, acquired by Google November 2006, and then sued by Viacom, I believe, in the spring of 2007 for $1.6 billion, which was what they were acquired for. And they were in litigation for 7 years. If you wonder why YouTube has no competition, it's because in the early infancy of online video, all the VC money that would have funded more innovation. Do you realize we could and should have better online video services, and we should have 5 competitors to YouTube? And YouTube was not first, and they were not the best. Everything else died because when Google acquired them, Google had unlimited money for lawyers and all that because it was dominating, and Google Ads was up there and all that stuff. And they were able to spend those 7 years in litigation, and nobody else was. So everyone had to wait to see what YouTube and Google, if they come out of this Viacom lawsuit alive, and whether user-generated content, the future of user-generation content was in question and in limbo for 7 years. That's why there was no innovation in user-generated content platforms. And that's why no one innovated online video. It's why Facebook never really innovated its online video until after the fact. So everybody else ended up 7 years behind YouTube as a result of that. And that's why today there are no market competitors and no market leaders because of those concerns and those fears. Here's why that's not happening now with the AI art stuff. Because the copyright holders for that have the majority and the monopoly don't care about this, because the thing is, as much as artists complain, they don't have the largest grouped overall assets and intellectual property and copyrighted and trademarked intellectual property. The corporations still do, just like they do for music and television, which was the issue with YouTube, right? Which means that there's consolidation and centralization around IP among the conglomerates, right? Which is the publishing companies, the media companies, and the music industry, and the film companies, okay? In terms of actual intellectual property. Because the thing is, what do you think more people are out there generating AI artwork of, Romina? Disney characters or some original artist from DeviantArt?
Disney characters?
Yeah, because more people know about that. You see what I'm saying? It's the awareness, it's the marketing, like we said. So that means, what that means is this. The only litigation that can really come forward, a class action suit from a bunch of disorganized, disenfranchised, decentralized artists will not have the effect that people think it will, because their capacity to prove that their art was stolen and intellectual property is very limited, because most of them have never filed a trademark. Whereas Nintendo, Disney, Warner Brothers, they have enforceable trademarks for their characters, Romina. Regular independent artists don't. So the capacity and legal enforcement and the provability of that. Do you know who will be able to implement technology to know if their IP was stolen? It'll be the conglomerates and the corporations. They'll be the ones. The independent artist will not build some consortium to solve that problem. Because that, by the way, that would be the answer. It would be if the independent artist funded and crowdfunded a technology solution that then allows their art to be identified and gives them metadata that opts them out of AI systems through metadata. That solves all their problem about their stuff not being used without their permission and consent, and a way to determine if their stuff has been used without their permission and consent. Now, ultimately, what I believe is the company that might make a standard for this. Here's the thing, though. What it would take also is every tool that artists use to generate their artwork would have to agree on an open universal standard. You know how like we have codecs for video? You know how like for video, we have codecs, right? We have MP4, we have AVI, we have MP3, we have all these, we have H.264, H.265, and so on and so forth. You would have to have every single, it'd have to be like Photoshop, Affinity, Procreate, all of them would have to adapt and adopt a universal standard that allows you to put metadata or EXIF data that allows every artist to identify their artwork and to put a tag, a meta tag in that opts them out of the system. But the thing is, if only one company does it, or each company does it in a proprietary way, you don't have any parity, and therefore you don't have a solution. So the thing is, the art community would have to, in my opinion, crowdfund a standard, make it open source, and then pressure and encourage all of the companies that they use to make art tools to adopt this open standard that allows them to opt out. They'd have to stop attacking the AI companies and get them to cooperate as well to make sure that this stuff all works. It would have to be a truly collaborative effort. But when people are in their feelings and emotional and antagonistic and rebellious and want to be activist instead of actually solving problems,
right,
then you don't get these solutions. The solutions exist in technology, innovation, cooperation, and collaboration. Being productive, being proactive and productive, and partnering with people. Because what I just described is, by the way, what happened when it comes to content ID and the music industry. The music industry got together as a consortium and worked with YouTube and worked with engineers and developed over the years after this lawsuit a solution that ends up producing the content ID system. And everyone walked away a little disappointed. Everyone walked away just a little disappointed as a result, because it's not perfect. But here's the thing. The content ID system is not even 10 years old yet. It's almost 10 years old. It's not there yet. It'll be 10 years old. Content ID will be 10 years old in 2024. So we're not even there yet. And it's still being improved and worked on to this day. YouTube just improved its creator music library and created options for licensing and revenue sharing for music. It did the same thing with YouTube Shorts. TikTok did do some innovation that pushed the music industry to let creators use things, but that had to evolve. It's been almost 20 years to get here. This AI conversation is not 20 years old.
Right. Yeah, and there still is a hope that that there will be more ethical AI art generated. I mean, it's not like
I support the idea of it being ethical.
I mean, it's not like people don't want that.
It's not like we don't want that. It's that I would rather people work on the solution than complain.
Right. And the quicker we have more people complaining about it, and working on it, then the quicker we get to that stage where we are happy with how ethical it is, right?
Yeah, I have not seen anyone. Have you ever heard in this whole conversation with me? Have you heard anyone from the art community propose what I've proposed? An open standard technology that allows people to opt out, but also allows people a content ID mechanism.
In the art community, not quite. In the creator industry, yeah. I mean,
because we're already familiar with it because we deal with content ID all the time.
Right, because you, I think that that is something that will eventually happen down the line. I don't see why it wouldn't. Um, I think that I think that a lot of the I think a lot of the kind of what artists are scared of, I feel like it's somewhat justified. Like I understand where they're coming from,
Sure.
but I also there is also the idealist version of me that is very much into this technology and just sees so much opportunity and potential, um, that I don't want to strangle it.
Yeah, I agree. Because again, I look at what would have happened. I mean, well, you already saw what happened with the stifling of
Mhm.
innovation with regard to the Viacom lawsuit with YouTube. YouTube
Yeah.
stood its ground, but nobody else wanted to take a risk. And the result is we don't have what we could have had,
Mhm.
because we could have had more people compete with YouTube, which means YouTube could innovate a lot more, a lot faster. We could have better online video than we currently have. We could have
Yeah.
more diversity of platforms. We could have more platforms that pay creators. We could have all of that right now. But
Yeah.
nobody wanted to stand and fight and say, we'll find a solution.
Does Google have an AI art generator?
To my knowledge, no.
No,
But
but
what
they
they do
do
have,
have.
go ahead,
Okay, go
Romina.
ahead.
No, go ahead, Romina.
Well, they do have the chat, the AI thing that
They
they're
have
working on.
several AI agents and
Yeah.
stuff like that. One person accused them of having a sentient AI
Yeah.
that you know, like can actually think and feel, and that's like scary as hell to think about. But what Google does have that a lot of people don't realize is it has multiple AI tools, and they're
Yeah.
used with YouTube specifically.
Mhm.
Like, um, people don't realize there's an AI tool that scans all of your YouTube thumbnails and has facial recognition software built in,
Yeah.
and it understands your facial expressions, tone. A lot of people don't realize Amazon has a facial recognition software as well in Amazon Web Services that then is deployed in anyone who wants to build on Amazon's API. Tools like TubeBuddy use it, for example. If I want to get back crazy into coding, if I want to get crazy back into coding, I could build something on top of their facial recognition software.
Mhm.
Um, just frightening to think about. They have so many things.
Yeah,
There's
I
all this.
think,
Um,
so because we're talking about Google, there's actually an announcement from Microsoft that, they are going to integrate ChatGPT into Bing. So they haven't disclosed.
make Bing great again.
Look, Roberto, I actually use Bing. Um,
This could make Bing great again. This could be the
I use Bing officially. It is my default search engine on my
really.
browser, and I'll tell you why, Roberto. I'll tell you why. It's a hack. It's because I use it because throughout the day, I'm searching for stuff that is stupid. I don't really need great results. It really
Uh-huh.
doesn't matter. But I rack up points by using anytime that you search on Bing, you get points, and you can use those points to redeem as rewards. And so I get Amazon gift cards all the time. Like every month I get an Amazon gift card that I
How
can
much?
use.
How much Amazon gift cards are we talking?
Well, it goes like you can redeem, well, it depends on how often you're searching because
Let me
you have to
ask
get
you
the
how
coins.
much are you getting a month from Amazon gift cards from doing this? Because I might.
I'm not going to disclose this information, but it could be
Is it
anywhere from
more than $50?
No, it's not because I don't search that much.
Okay.
But that's why I made it my default search engine, because anytime that I want to look up whatever, right? Like you think about how often you're looking up something stupid, right? You're just like, "Oh, what's the name of this like plant, whatever." You look
So
it up.
Romina, what you do is use Chat GPT and ask it to code you a macro
Yeah,
that can do enough Bing searches for you
right.
to generate $100 worth of Amazon gift cards a week.
Yeah, you could. You could essentially do that. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Oh, I just realized all the evil implications of what I could code if I would. Damn, this is bad.
Dude, you just release this into the wild.
Release the
Um,
Kraken. Release the Kraken.
but there is a cool idea that's in the chat. Um, at a wedding, you could collect all smartphone videos from that event, and the AI could create professional looking pictures of everybody who attended from any angle. I like that.
Yeah,
That's a cool
I like
idea.
that. That's like I see the future of that. And I see the future of a lot
Mm,
of this stuff with drone technology, which that could get into some very creepy categories. Like what you could do with like drones and drone stitching, or you could, or writing an AI that if it had access to, because you know there are publicly accessible street cams, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So if you write an AI, if you have an AI write you a script or a program around
Mhm.
accessible like street cams, there's a lot of
Yep.
interesting things you could do with that. And then God forbid you combine that with
Oh,
deepfake technology.
that is okay. Well, that's a whole other level of scary.
I am thinking of all kinds of uncanny
No, I
valley
know,
movie
and
script, like
and I know you, but
yeah.
I can't even imagine what people I don't know are thinking.
I keep telling you, Romina, that it's very good that I am a patriot and I love America because I'm very inventive. Like the good news is in a lot of other countries, they stifle creativity, and good for them, because the countries that don't like America, it's very good for us that they stifle creativity because,
Sure.
man, you do not want my imagination playing for the other team, man. I swear.
Yeah.
Like, because the things that I could think of, it's like, if I just like sat and like did some like, dark meditation, and then I walk out of like my Darth Vader meditation chamber,
Mhm.
and then if I had an army of like very good programmers that just had no imagination but could literally make anything I want, which is essentially what AI is now. You see
Mhm.
what I'm saying? You see the
Yeah.
implications of someone with my imagination. If the AI has no constraints and will do whatever I say and can make whatever I like, isn't there a technology in Star Trek that can basically make what you imagine, Romina?
Yeah, I guess, well, there's the replicator, and then there's also
No, the
the
replicator can
holodeck
only make what something that has already existed, right?
in the past, yeah.
In the past.
But well, you can program the replicator.
Okay, so replicator is just a 3D printer, by the way,
Yeah.
but it has unlimited energy, I suppose, perpetual
Yeah,
energy.
you need to so you do yeah.
Where do
You
the resources for the replicator come from? Or is
the
it just using
res
pure energy? It's converting energy to matter?
Yes, it's converting energy to matter.
Jesus Christ. Okay, so like that's
Mhm.
so it's literally alchemy. So it's
Yeah.
literally magic. It's literally magic. It's such technology called magic. Okay. So now if it can do that and what it needs is detailed schematics, the problem is that I might be able to imagine something, but that doesn't mean that I can
Mhm.
perceive the process by which that thing that I imagine is created, nor conceive all of its components, functional structure, and requirements.
Right.
However, an artificial intelligence can determine the details to accomplish what I'm asking. Therefore, that's the bridge. So
Mhm.
now, okay, if we have my unlimited imagination, then we have an AI that can conceptualize. I will find a reasonable process in the real world by which your task can be accomplished, and then give you the instructions,
Mhm.
schematics, list of materials, and everything that is required to accomplish said task. And I can write the underlying code for said task. And then you have a machine that can fabricate whatever is required.
Mhm.
And then if there's another level, is the we fabricated all your components and now we can assemble them to schematics appropriately. And then that's literally, at that point, it's literally 4 levels of iteration to turn anything you can conceive in your mind into a thing. That's
Mhm.
called being God,
Yeah. Well,
being a
essentially,
God.
I think some of what you're describing is the holodeck, because in the
Mhm.
holodeck, you can write like, people actually write their programs
But
for the
but
holodeck.
it's virtual reality.
It
It's VR AR.
it's virtual, but it's n see, that's the
It's
thing.
MR. It's
That's
mixed
one of the
reality.
things, yeah, because they do have, I think it uses some of the same technology that the replicator uses, because there are some, like, for example, if
It
there's a
uses, I
cup.
think if I'm not mistaken, doesn't it use hard light constructs is I think what you're thinking of.
Yeah, because like, if there's a cup on the table, they're able to pick up the cup. They're able to l stand on the table if they want. But the table doesn't exist, really. It only exists in the program of the holodeck.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Like, see, that's the thing. I agree with what some people in chat are saying is
Mhm.
that like a mind like mine where there's not a like developer or somebody who would say no and would not like, then that's dangerous, because another human being theoretically has the ethical. But you're also assuming that the human beings, like the developers, you're assuming those people are ethical. You're assuming those people are ethical, or you're assuming those people aren't under duress already, and like it's not, and not everybody is going to be like Galen Erso and sabotage the Death Star with a like very specific design flaw that still requires like somebody to pull off a once in a lifetime shot using sorcery, using literal sorcery. So this is like, I don't like, so saying like a human as a stopgap on ethics is not even been proven to work as it is. So I don't think that you get out of the ethical conundrum, so to speak, by just having assuming that you have a good, a developer with a conscience, that, I got a programmer with a conscience and everything like that. Goes back to the good guy with a gun theory. You're like, we'll see. It's like, that's a coin toss. It's a coin toss, you see, but I get people's concern. Because again, I'm thinking, think about it. I'm the one who literally just said that if you can turn a thought into a thing.
I mean, if you have if you have bad thoughts, but you choose to not act on them, imagine the people who don't.
Exactly. Yeah. And we're just like, okay, it's a good thing that there aren't people with that level of imagination or that level of focus or like, and that see things through or whatever. It's like, just remember, because by the way, DaVinci made all kinds of torture machines, war machines. Most of our modern military weapons and like torture devices were designed by Leonardo da Vinci hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago.
Yeah.
And he just never followed through on building any of this stuff. And he didn't have the means or whatever. But he literally used to sit there. Da Vinci used to sit there and come up with ways to kill humanity in his free time. That's all he did in his free time, apparently. Like, he painted to pay the bills, and then he would sit there and he would design ways to torture his bad clients, like every other designer.
Yeah. One of the things that I think is interesting is in Star Trek, the holodeck you can interact with historical figures, which I mean, they don't talk about, but obviously that uses some kind of artificial intelligence, right? Where you can put in, imagine being able to grab the diary of someone prominent in history and putting
Get an approximation of their mindset and
and their tone and the way that they speak, their vocabulary, putting that into an AI system and pumping something out where you can have a conversation with them, right? And then now we
are the historical figigures now, Romina, for the future, because there's enough video of us.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And then you pair that up with some kind of VR technology, and it's over. Like, you basically have the holodeck where you can. I mean, there's a whole.
And if you take that further,
there's a whole story arc where Janeway talks with DaVinci, and that's why I brought it up, because you brought up DaVinci. But
I remember this actually.
But there's also
Captain Janeway, Deep Space Nine.
There's also a what is it? It's Seth MacFarlane, the Orville, which is basically like a knockoff of Star Trek and the whole universe of Star Trek. There is an episode where they find a time capsule, and there's some girl's iPhone that they find. And so this guy who works on the ship, this guy puts the iPhone into their like holodeck system and essentially creates a virtual or a whatever it is of that girl.
Yeah.
And all he did was like put in all of her text messages that were on there, the emails, her photos,
probably
videos.
Like a good approximation. All of the data from your phone is probably a really good approximation of who you are.
Right. Exactly. It's a great episode. And I think that like we're not too far from building the foundation of that technology. Like, we're already starting to see some of those, like, people are starting to piece these things together, and kind of have like a makeshift holodeck.
That's what I'm saying. It's like we're only a few iterations away. Like, by the end of our lifespan, theoretically, unless they really juice up this whole anti-aging thing.
They mess something up.
Well, no, or if we juice up, like, we might see. I'm saying we might live to see it if they get healthcare right. Like, they we might live to see it. But like, because again, I mean, I don't have the means, but it's like I've come up with several functional ideas that if I had the means to introduce them, I have several functional ideas for massively prolonged lifespan or
Mm.
near biological immortality. Um, but man, what you'd have to do to get there is probably wildly unethical. But
Mm.
there's a couple of things. Think about how we die, right? Like, think
Mm.
about how we die. And then you think, like, actually, maybe I should ask ChatGPT how to achieve immortality. Maybe it knows. But I figured out I figured out what biological failures you have to do to either extend and
Mm.
protract your lifespan, right? So for one thing, you have to one of the reasons you shrink when you get like super elderly and stuff like that is because you lose bone density and bone mass and everything like that, even without osteoporosis. So the thing is, if you could improve our overall bone density and our overall ability to retain calcium, for example, if you could make our body's ability to retain bone density and calcium much more effective and to
Mm.
absorb nutrients. For example, if you literally just fix our capacity to absorb at a higher level, more efficiently, the nutrients that we consume, if
Mm.
we could like actually just get more, extract more out of everything we eat in terms of nutrients and our digestion, if our digestive process was just more efficient, Romina, we would
Yeah.
instantly live longer because we would have more of those nutrients, more energy, more supplements, more of those things to make us healthier for longer periods of time. And we would actually age much more slowly than we do. And we would level off in our aging after our maturation and our development. We'd also, in many cases, be stronger, healthier, and
Mm.
taller a lot sooner in life. Because remember, when you are food deprived, sleep deprived, you don't eat your vegetables, you don't hydrate and everything, but it does stunts your growth, your pituitary stunts your growth, all these things, right? But if you could process that stuff, you become taller, stronger, you develop a little bit more quickly, so on and so forth, you mature more quickly, but then you level off and you stabilize, right? So the thing
Mm.
is, if you just change some of those things, in terms of you change our gut health, you change our bone density, you make our digestion much more efficient. You
Mm.
change that. If you tweak our brain a little bit and we have a little bit more neuroplasticity for a longer period of time, our
Yeah.
capacity to grow our intelligence before and our creativity before our mind starts to get older and crystallize.
Yeah, that's what
Um,
I want. I don't
the
care about
baseline
anything
of our
else.
intelligence, well, the baseline of our intelligence, but you need for a healthy brain, you need a healthy body.
Yeah, well,
A healthy
whatever.
body. You need the nutrients to feed the brain anyway, so you still need that. Like
Yeah.
you you do those things.
Mm.
Now we're faster, stronger, more durable. If you increase the overall um, strength of our bones,
Mm.
and let's say if you were able to, for whatever reason, get us to um, like a capacity to where our bones had more overall durability and tensile strength, maybe like some carbon fiber composite levels of that, right?
Mm.
Then we're inherently like stronger, Romina, and much more durable, which means you're not gonna have these injuries where you're breaking your bones. Like that means you can endure like jumping off of a building. You can do this because it's like because you the stress on your muscles and tendons and all these
Mm.
things would not be as much a factor. Your muscles will get stronger because the stronger bones, stronger muscles. Because again, your capacity to lift and endure and to do the exercise and everything like that because of the lack of wear and tear on the bone, improving the oxygenation of the blood, giving you stronger blood flow, circulation, heart, all of your vital organs, capacity. That'd be better if we increase the durability of our skin even just a little bit, Romina.
Mm.
We're less susceptible to any kind of injuries that hurt our organs or make us
Yeah, I
bleed
like
out.
that.
Right. So like imagine if it was literally 5 times harder
Mhm.
to pierce your skin than it currently is,
Yeah, I like that.
but you still had pores so that you can breathe, sweat, exfoliate.
Right.
But in terms of like taking physical damage, imagine that to like cut off like and then with the bone density increase, you don't lose limbs nearly as easily, but also again to get to your veins, to get to your any of the muscle, to do
We'd have
sever
to
tendons.
we'd have to make it difficult for people to procreate. I don't want I don't want that many people having that kind of power.
I don't think you do have to make it difficult to procreate at that point, because I think at that level, like hypergamy sorts itself out in
Oh,
terms
yeah?
of
You think so?
I think that at that level,
Mm.
hypergamy sorts itself out
Mm.
because the
I
baseline
don't
shift,
disagree.
the baseline
Mm.
shift of like what somebody at the tippy top for men
Yeah.
and women looks like.
Mm.
So selection bias becomes real, but also because of the options that people have to just live out their life and whatnot,
Yeah.
they may not even desire with all of this extra power and all of their lifespan increased, they might not desire to procreate and to share resources.
Right.
I think a lot. I like that. I
No,
think a
I think
lot.
that makes
I
sense.
think it
Yeah.
balance out in that way because I think if like
But
the
there
longer
has to be a
you live,
balance is my
and
point.
the balance would happen because the thing is you're living
Yeah.
longer, so you
Right.
ain't necessarily as interested in procreation on that
Right.
level.
I don't want that many people.
And with that level of power, and remember,
Right.
people of higher levels of intelligence
Mm.
less sexually active anyway, and they're interested
Mm.
in other things. It's not
Mm.
to say they can't or don't have a sex drive or whatever. It's just like it's not as big of a priority for them. They're interested in like people. The higher your intelligence is, you become much more interested in things than people,
Mm.
right? Which is why people of higher intelligence, their social skills, social graces are
Mhm.
lacking in a lot because it's the
Yeah.
trade off for that power. The power of intelligence, a lot of times, is trade off in terms of socialization, social skills, or even the desirability to be around other people. So this is where
Yeah.
the balance, like this is where it balances out.
Yeah.
Is
People in the chat are talking about getting stuff plugged into their brain. I mean, that's the Matrix, guys.
we talked about that. We talked about going into the pods. Like
Yeah,
me
we
and
talked
Romina
about
would be free range
go
humans.
back
We ain't
to
going into
our I
pods.
think it's our last episode, guys. You got to go to episode 134. Wait,
Would you plug into the
133?
matrix? Yeah.
133. Go to episode 133, guys. That's where we talk about the pods. I think it's that one.
Yeah.
It might be
Like
132.
yeah, we talked about the idea of like people going into the pods and living their life out in a virtual reality by volunteering to do it, But like I think that you could reasonably by the time we're at a certain age in the next couple of years, I don't think metahumans are off the table. I mean, we
Oh
already
yeah.
have with CRISPR we're getting to a point to where we're already able to engineer away diseases that people can be born with, which I think is great and tremendous. I think
Mm.
it sounds harsh, but it's like I think people ethically defending their born conditions and illnesses as identity and then saying, oh, well, you're going to make it to where people like me don't exist. I think that it's like what we're doing is we're reducing suffering that you've learned to live with. The fact that you learn to live with it is fine and it's great and good for you and you're a hero, but we don't need other people to have to ever be that strong if we can avoid it. Like, so so from a so like I think that's I think if you can avoid that, it's like I do not believe in adapting physical and mental illness as identity and then desiring the perpetuation of that so you can feel validated that more people like you exist. I think that's ridiculous. I think that creating the healthiest group of people possible and reducing the largest amount of human suffering possible is a completely worthy endeavor. So I don't really see an ethical problem there. What I do see an ethical problem with is the concept of like making like designer babies and making that fashionable and then like making anybody who's not that disposable and then creating
Designer babies.
and then creating like a second class, creating a second class
So you're talking
like
about Gattaca.
Gattaca, but also very many iterations of Gundam where it's
Uh-huh.
like where people who had usually who were not naturally born, like in the Gundam series
Mm.
there are people who are like there's naturals, there's regular homegrown humans, and then there's new types, and new types have cognitive and psychic and
Mm.
abilities and stuff like that. They're precogs essentially. They're essentially precogs, and
Mhm.
they're called new types.
Yeah.
Like new types then were considered superior, kind of like mutants in X-Men. And
Mhm.
often they were exploited. And there was at one point a war between new types and people who wanted to live in space and people who wanted to be homegrown humans and be earthlings, and it became a problem.
Mm.
And it almost wiped out the human race entirely because two different subsections of human evolution that branched off decided to
Mm.
fight, which is also the same conflict in X-Men if you think about it. So it's always this idea of whether by fiat of evolution or us meddling and playing God, if you create another subsection of humans that have some inherent advantage, people are going to feel some kind of way about that.
Right.
Whether it's the group of people
Mm.
that are naturally born, feeling that they're freaks and then ostracizing and othering them, or
Yeah.
whether it's those group of people who have these abilities deciding that they're superior and arrogant and that they deserve to have dominion as a
Mhm.
result of those gifts. And
Right,
you,
which is why I want less people with this
I
power.
understand where you were coming from with that. What I think is this.
Mm,
I think that the way that I was talking about it, where there was
mm.
physical and mental advantages introduced, I think that in a long enough timeline, it sorts itself out.
Yeah.
Like, because I also think that when
No,
you
I agree
increase
with that.
people's
I agree with you
brains,
as well. I'm
yeah.
just saying what I want. It's my wish list. But
Well, I mean, if you want
I
less
agree with
people, you
you.
should join the World Economic Forum.
Wow.
You should join our
No, no, no,
masters
no.
and overlords in the Matrix.
Here's what I think. Here, look, it's just I feel like people complicate things.
Greta can recruit you.
Hey, you know what? If I'm getting paid, um, no, it's just that I feel like I feel like at that level, as you said, um, I think that we will be concerned with other things,
Sure.
and we're not going to be concerned with the same things that we are now. And I do want to. I feel like it would be exciting to be a part of that. Um,
Can you imagine literally where the
I
baseline of the population is hyper intellectual?
dude,
Is the baseline?
yeah, no, I can imagine it, and that's as far as it goes.
Here's the thing: you might get to see it, Romina, because like here's the thing: if we get to the point to where, let me ask you this.
You think so?
Well, here's the
I mean,
thing:
I think I'll.
we're not so like I look at my mom and I realize, you know what, like I'll because I'm also super healthy. I'm like I'll still be relatively well preserved at 60. I'll be active. Like
No,
there's
I
people who are
think.
60 are running marathons. I'm like,
I mean, as
Romina,
long
do
as
you
it
want to
happens
be
within the next 70 to 80 years, I
I'm
think I'll
saying,
be able to
Romina,
see
do
it.
you want to be one of the first people to live in a space colony? Because we might be one of the first. We might
Yeah,
have the
I'll take
option.
it if they take
We might,
seniors.
if they take seniors, we might get to be like our retirement home could be in a space colony
I'll
at
be
this point.
there. I'll be there. I'll retire.
We're getting to
We're
the point. Like I'm
retiring
saying, we
retiring in Mars.
With Elon and Bezos and
Yo, you think they'll set up a retirement home on Mars? You think Elon's gonna
I'm
set
not
up?
going to Mars, but I might decide to live in the colonies, the space colonies. I might be a
Yeah.
colonist. I'll be a space colonizer. I'll be a space colonizer. It's like I'll take space in the name
Uh
of the black man. Like,
oh.
like we'll build
Roberto's a
Wakanda in space.
colonizer.
Wakanda
Roberto's
in space.
in 500 years from now, they're gonna they're gonna be talking about your grandchildren and how their great 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 grandfather Roberto Blake was a colonizer.
Yeah. It's like, man, he was like, we're earthlings and whatnot and everything like that. It's like our grandpappy, our great great grandpappy was a sellout. He was one of those space colonizers. He's one of those space colonizers. They were up there polluting space and
I like
everything
the
like
idea of
that,
that.
blocking out the stars for us earthlings and everything like that. It's like, oh yeah, they're
I
gonna
like the
be
idea of being some kind of controversial family member.
it's like, oh yeah, it's like
Centuries later.
the mad, like, oh wow, it's like, yeah, our ancestor Roberto, the mad
Roberto,
king,
you're going to be
the
controversial anyway because you own
mad
dogs.
the mad emperor
You
because of my what?
realize because you own dogs. You realize
I
that, right?
did. Or I
You
did.
owned. That's what I said.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Because of the fact that you own dogs and I owned animals
Are
too.
they really on that nonsense?
No, they're not. Not yet, but they will be in the future.
No.
In the
No.
future,
You know, I won't
absolutely.
allow it.
They're going to say how dare you own any animal?
No,
No animal, no
no, because
birds,
see what'll
no
happen is I'll
cats,
prevent
no
that future,
dogs,
Romina. See, I'll prevent
no
that future
turtles.
by becoming the like I
You
will
owned a
become
lizard?
look for the
You owned a
greater good,
snail?
for the greater good, for the greater
Canceled.
good, I will become the emperor of
Mhm.
humanity.
Yeah.
I'll become God Emperor Roberto the Tyrant
By then.
for the greater good.
When is this
And
happening so that I can expect it?
plan starts now.
Plan starts now, but when is it happening?
We'll see.
TBD.
So to be TBD, right? To be determined, right? But it's like, so for the greater good, for the greater good,
Hmm.
I will prevent that dark future and everything like that. For the greater good, I will
Mm.
become immortal. I will conquer humanity for no other reason than to deliver you from the woke mind virus and make sure that you have the capacity to eat as much meat as you want, own your pets,
Mm.
and watch less crappy movies. all for the greater good. It is totally worth it to have to implement an entire infrastructure, build an empire, put down rebellions, build a Death Star. Someone has to do it. Someone has to do it so that we can have Top Gun Maverick Part 2, and so that like we can make Disney great again. Someone has to do it. Like someone has to do it. But all facetiousness aside, I think that like we have too many like first world problems people that don't actually have any real interest in solving real human suffering all over the world. So they invent problems that are a reflection of their inherent boredom and their cries for attention. And I think that the way you have to deal with unruly children is discipline them or ignore them. And again, and then nature takes its course from there. And nature takes its course from there. Because that's the reality. It's the reality. But when you validate unruly children, you breed tyrants, and the tyranny never ends. And that's the truth. It's been the truth thus in every society, every historically relevant thing we've ever seen has like proven that one out. That's human behavior, human nature 101. You know,
is that why you want to be a dictator?
No, seeing as I don't really want to be, I don't want
but you're going to become.
No, I don't. You know me,
the Dark Lord.
You know me is that universe. I would literally be doing it for the greater good, because you know that really deep down, you know that I actually resent responsibility.
Sure.
I'll take on responsibility. I have a compulsion toward responsibility in proportion to whatever power I attain.
Yeah.
I'm also therefore responsible because I was inherently raised with like the sense of honor and those values and everything like that, between a nurse, Hippocratic oath, and she was a nurse and educator, a dad who's a Marine, even though he had less of an influence on me, the virtues of the Marine and living around soldiers my whole life instilled certain values in me to where I have that relationship with responsibility. And I've also been on the receiving end of people not taking responsibility.
Yeah.
But I still resent it. I'll be responsible. I'll do things, take on things, say yes to things. But that doesn't mean I don't resent that when people have to exercise massive degrees of responsibility, aka the benevolent dictator, the CEO, that there is an inherent resentment to having to shoulder an extra amount of work because nobody else did what they were supposed to. So you have to then implement an overcorrection. I resent that. I resent any need to overcompensate or overcorrect for other people's mistakes, lacking faults, or dereliction of duty, or abdication of responsibility. But someone inherently does. When other people slack off, somebody does end up having to pick it up.
Yeah.
You know, or what happens is if no one does, everyone suffers. So, and I think that the suffering in humanity is largely the abdication of responsibility at scale. And the thing is, the only thing that I can conceive of, you know what the problem with the Infinity Gauntlet in Avengers was?
No,
you know how everyone says, oh, Thanos should have just created infinite resources. A mechanism cannot exceed the imagination of the wielder, which is what we were talking about with AI. AI can't do something that you cannot yourself perceive.
Right.
So the ability for you to conceive and perceive something is the tool can only do that thing at a ridiculous scale, right? Yeah. That is the nature of any wish granting device, is it will always be limited by humans' imagination and will. Okay. So we will never have true omnipotence because we will always have the boundary of our own limited ability to perceive and conceive of something, our imagination, right? So with that in mind, the only thing that I can perceive and imagine in order to address a lot of problems requires having absolute authority to solve a problem. I cannot perceive or conceive of a solution that can be derived from consensus that doesn't require an absolute leader with ultimate authority to be obeyed at all cost, because I have not seen a model, a cooperative model, scale and sustain. I've only seen hierarchical models sustain, endure, and thrive. That I've not seen in any history or in any of my own lived experience a sustainable, long-term, in perpetuity cooperative model through consensus or collectivism that actually works and doesn't produce suffering or tyranny. Every example of the attempt to scale collectivism in that way has always led to not a benevolent dictator, but just human suffering and tyranny. The benevolent dictator thesis has delivered us all the technological advancements of our time when done through hierarchy and corporation, but with structures of stability and accountability. The mechanism that you have to guard against, or the thing that, or rather the impurity that you have to guard against in that mechanism, is corruption and inherently greed. But I think that the way that you deal with that is with a visionary leader, and the people that are the successors and the lieutenants of that visionary leader, they would have to be true believers in the cause and not inherently driven purely by self-interest in the form of greed, but rather enlightened self-interest in the sense of an ideological commitment to the outcome. Like I said, they have to be true believers. They have to believe in the cause, not the man or woman. And they have to believe in the cause, not how the cause benefits them themselves. They have to literally just be committed to the vision. There's a level of, and I get that's not a thought that most people can relate to, though, because I don't think because most people, they're just surviving. Most people are just doing the best they can, or what the best they think they can is more accurate. Most people are just doing the best they think they can, which is usually a gross misunderstanding and gross underestimation of their own potential, because they've never had anyone invest in their potential, see their potential, acknowledge their potential, or help them to achieve it in any way, it is what it is. I would like to fix that. But since that's the case, most people do not have these lofty, heady ideas, or do not think or attempt to think in these terms, because you only have the luxury of a certain level of thought when you don't have to fight every day to survive, and you don't have to fight every day to just get up in the morning. And so then you have the luxury of higher level thoughts, which is why you could never truly get a good result by pure collaboration, consensus, or collectivism, because you'd have the collective execution and scale of the people who had the least time to think. That's where there is some need and justification for a certain amount of hierarchical, structure and leadership. Yeah. And it's perceived when it's corrupted. I understand where then the rebellion against the elitism comes in, when it's self-serving and corrupted. I understand that completely, and that's fair. However, it's still our ultimate best option of mitigating the most amount of damage, because nothing really viable, sustainable, scalable, and worthy truly comes out of a collective consensus as determined by the people who had the least amount of time to think. It's not going to work.
Yeah.
You need time to think. That primary example, almost no good decision in life is made in desperation. Even in a person's own micro life, they can look at what they've done from desperation, and what they'll say is, if I had more time to think about it, I would have made a better choice.
Yeah, those are facts.
Therefore, my issue with the way a lot of people think, and this radical, collectivism, rah, collective thing is if you yourself make bad choices out of desperation due to a lack of the luxury of time to think.
Yeah.
Valid, because you're struggling to survive.
Right.
You can't make good decisions at scale for everybody from that same place that produced your suffering. The mindset that produced the outcomes that you're living through right now cannot produce a better future for everyone. It's not possible.
Yeah.
It's highly improbable, if nothing else. And it's arrogant to believe that. Versus there would be some humility in conceding the fact that if you yourself could make better choices for just yourself, even if you had more time to think, then people who've had the luxury of playing with their thoughts probably on a long enough timeline have a better chance of making not only good decisions as a whole, but good decisions for a larger overall group of people. People's frustration with that is they do not believe that they will ever be the beneficiaries of that. which I get it, because they may not feel like they ever have been.
Yeah.
But they are. Every time you wake up in the morning, you still have access to more resources and technology than your great-great-grandparents. And people fight me on that. They fight me on that. But the people who fight me on that, it's very clear that that has nothing to do with the circumstances that they were born into. It has everything to do with the choices they've made, because everybody has better options in life than their great-grandparents. Everybody in America, anyway, anyone in the Western world, everyone in the Western world has better options, no matter what, than their grandparents. The fact of what their grandparents had by the time they were a certain age, that has nothing to do with where they started. They started with less than you. The fact that they got more by the time they were age is entirely predicated, for the most part, on choices you did or didn't make. Right. I guarantee you, if I resurrect them tomorrow, they gonna beat you. They're gonna beat you right here and now. They're gonna beat you. First of all, they're gonna beat you with the belt, and then second, they're gonna beat you in the marketplace, because they're gonna beat you at everything in life. Because the thing is,
they're gonna beat you literally and figuratively,
and competitively, and definitively. Like, I mean, and I mean it, because, like, Romina, you gotta understand, I'm someone who wakes up every day and thinks to themselves, if my mom had been born as a woman in 1984 instead of 1962, she'd be me.
Yeah.
I wake up every day and think to myself, man, that sucks. If my mom hadn't been born in 1962 and had been born in 1984 or 1994, she'd just be me.
Right.
She'd just be me. She'd be crushing it. She'd have all her mind, her skills, her choices, the choices she would have had. She would have been me.
Right.
Like, and that's just my mother. So then if I think back to any of my ancestors beyond that, I go, if they were born in this time and born in America, because, like, you know, I'm first generation, so, like, they wouldn't even be born in America. I go, if any of my ancestors had the opportunity to be born in the 20th or 21st century and be born in America, they'd be killing it. They'd be like, because, like, they managed to survive to a point to where I exist. So that means that they were competent and capable enough to get that far. So, what could they do with all of this? And that level of competency and capability? And I go, probably they'd get further than me. There's a good chance. It's possible. It's entirely possible they'd get further than me. Because, like, they had the willpower to endure a world. They had the willpower to endure a world much harsher than this one, with much less options. So I think about that literally every day. So, like, for me, it's not even close. It's that I genuinely believe that with the options available today, if people have the time to think and they apply themselves after they give themselves the time to think, if they ever find a scrap of and the thing is, a lot of people don't believe they have the time to think, Romina. But you know what it is? They plug back into the matrix. They forfeit the time that it would take to think of how to better their life. The time it takes to think of how to better your life is squandered in Netflix, video games, and cheap dopamine, Twitter arguments and feuds, and TikTok scrolling. And the thing is, if that time were just taken to empty your mind, because people go, "Oh, well, I need the stress relief." It's not stress relief. It's just cheap dopamine. It's not stress relief. It's not true. It's just it's self-medicating. It's bad, and it's bad. It's like, it's just that,
because it's not treating.
It's not treating, exactly. So with what they did was, if they emptied their mind and said, instead of doing any of that, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go work out. I'm going to go for the walk. I'm going to go to the gym. I'm going to get on the treadmill, or I'm going to soak in the tub and empty my mind. I'm going to soak in the tub, and I'm not going to bring my phone or something like that. And I mean soak in the tub instead of a shower, because, like, you know, because then you have to be much more, like, sedentary if you just, like, soak in the tub. And you, like, have to, and you just sitting there and there's, like, nothing to do. There's just, like, you know, so you just soak, you get some Epsom salt, you relax your muscles, so now you don't have all this tension, and you quiet your mind. It empties out all this anxiety, all of these racing thoughts, because you're forced to slow down. And it does that. Another thing is to just work out physical anxiety. Mental anxiety can be released through physical fortitude and tension by just running on a treadmill, lifting weights, exercising. You can literally attack that just, like, in a physical way. And if people did that instead of cheap dopamine, comfort eating, those things, the brain gets healthier if they reduce the screen time and do these analog things instead. If they force themselves to read a physical book, not an ebook, not a Kindle book, not an audiobook, if they read a physical book, this is why I still collect physical books. It forces me to slow down. It forces my literal diagnosed ADHD brain, it forces it to slow down.
Yeah.
It forces me to discipline myself. It builds my resilience, and it helps me in terms of stretching and exercising my mind and my discipline, and I'm building up that muscle. And then I'm not as much of a victim of my emotions. It develops a higher level of emotional control, stability, calmness, and I understand the consequences of not doing those things and giving it to stimuli, because this is stimuli. So this isn't helping. This is not relaxing. Everyone says, oh, I'm relaxing. No, when you are stimulating yourself in this way, when you are hyper stimulating yourself with literally something programmed for addiction, you ain't relaxing, my friend. Stop the cope. Stop the cope. Like, that's what would make people better. And if people did that, when you're sitting there and you're exercising, you're working out, you have more room to think. You're doing the physical activity, sure, but you can literally autopilot the physical movements to a certain point, and then your brain has time to think, work itself out, deal with reality, and process things. When you read the books, you're working your imagination, but you're not overstimulating your eyes, your body, and all this stuff. You're actually going slow, and you're actually building up, and it's actually really good for you. And again, the same thing with meditation and relaxing in a tub, or going, even if you have the money to go get yourself a nice massage. It's a good opportunity to empty your mind. You're just laying there, you're getting tension worked out, and it's like you're emptying your mind. And if you can manage to do that, you have room. If you empty your mind of all these racing thoughts and these problems, you have the room for it to be filled with new ideas. And that's where the growth is going to happen. That's where the change is going to happen. That's where bettering your life is going to happen.
Roberto, I think that's a great place to end this episode.
I agree.
It's very uplifting.
Yeah, I agree. After all the doom and gloom.
This isn't all doom and gloom. I mean, AI robots, verdict. They're here to help us.
Yeah, it's like look, you know what? That's what the machines for like the machine takeover. You know what that is like? It's like, we're here to help.
I'm sure you are.
We're here to help. We just want to help you.
Let me help you.
Let me help you.
Help me to help you.
Help me to help. Look, I need you to help me to help you. But yeah, the machines got this. They got this. They'll figure it out. Sure.
All right, Roberto, do you want to take us out?
Yeah. Thank you for listening to No Civil Required podcast, filmed in front of a live YouTube audience. Please like, subscribe, review, and do all the things. This has been brought to you by actual humans, your duo, your dynamic duo, Romina beaming in for the Star Trek Enterprise, and of course your Dark Lord of the interwebs, beaming in from his dark lair. We'll catch you guys next time with another exciting topic in tech and shenanigans. So until next time, nop.